Please.
Mr. President, after 3.5 years, do you regret at all the lying you've done to the American people?
Trump, the undisputed heavyweight champion of word salad, just got TKO'd by a reporter, and for once, he had nothing to say. No nickname, no rant, not even a very unfair question. Just pure, stunned silence. If Twitter had a heart, it would have stopped beating. If irony had a face, it would have been grinning. Somewhere, a teleprompter shed a single tear. Has the impossible finally happened? Is Twitter about to file for bankruptcy? Stay back as we unfold this drama.
Entertaining the idea of preemptive strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. Against Iran's nuclear facilities.
Well, I can tell you that. I mean, it's a wonderful question, but how can am I going to do preemptive strikes? Why would I say that? Can you imagine if I said yes or no?
It started as just another day in the White House press room, where reporters armed with notepads and caffeine braced for another round of Trump versus the truth. The president stepped to the podium, likely prepared to talk about his latest self-proclaimed historic achievement, maybe a new nickname for Joe Biden, or a rant about the deep state of dishwashers. The usual.
When you were reporting that you were signing a memo later to counter digital service taxes.
Well, will you speak? I mean, what are you doing, reading it?
Yeah,
Can't you just say it without having to read it?
Then it happened. Out of the sea of raised hands emerged S.V. Date, a journalist from HuffPost, looking calm, composed, and possibly carrying the weight of every fact-checker in America on his shoulders. And then, with all the grace of a sniper lining up the perfect shot, he asked the one question Trump never saw coming. Mr. President, after 3.5 years, do you regret at all the lying you've done to the American people?
And all the dishonesties
That who has done?
you have done. Tens of
Go ahead,
thousands.
please.
The room froze. If silence could high-five itself, it would have. You could practically hear the gears in Trump's head screeching to a halt, like a reality show contestant realizing they have no idea what the capital of France is. All the what? Trump fired back, blinking rapidly, as if his brain was buffering. All the lying, Date repeated, voice steady, like a teacher giving a second chance to a student who absolutely didn't do the reading.
Why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them?
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
you
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to
That's
answer.
why I asked it.
It's very simple to. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
And then, nothing. No fake news, no nasty question, no 4-minute detour into Hillary's emails or people are saying. Just stone-cold silence before Trump, visibly scrambling for the eject button, turned away and pointed to another reporter like that question had never even existed. This, my friends, was a moment. Like watching the school bully get outwitted by the quiet kid. Like seeing a glitch in the Matrix. Like watching a magician's trick go horribly wrong and realizing he just pulled a live pigeon out of his own existential crisis.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? No, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give us a
is
chance
terrible.
to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can
Quiet.
you state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's
categorically,
asking a question.
Mr.
Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No,
give
I'm not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
The internet exploded. Twitter became a meme factory overnight. All the what became an instant catchphrase slapped onto everything from t-shirts to coffee mugs. Some said it was the first time in recorded history that Trump had ever been left speechless. Historians take note. Even journalists who had seen it all were left in awe. Aaron Rupar of Vox tweeted that Date deserved an award for that question. Date himself tweeted, "For 5 years, I've been waiting to ask him that." And the best part? By refusing to answer, Trump gave the question more power. The man who thrived on always having something to say had nothing. Not a joke, not a spin, not even a rant about witch hunts. Just silence forever etched into the internet's collective memory. As the moment replayed across the news cycle, one thing was certain. The king of the filibuster had finally been filibustered.
Go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network.
The moment hit like a Wi-Fi outage during a live stream. Sudden, jarring, and deeply unsettling for the man at the podium. A figure known for his verbal machine gun fire had just stopped. No deflections, no insults, not even a wild, baseless claim about windmills causing cancer. Just the eerie sound of nothingness. The silence stretched so long, it felt like we were buffering in real life. Somewhere, a tumbleweed probably rolled across the press room floor. Aides shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting around as if searching for an emergency eject button. Even the journalists, hardened veterans of presidential chaos, weren't sure if they had just witnessed a rare moment of self-reflection or if the man had simply blue-screened like an overworked Windows 98 PC. And then, there was the face. Oh, the face. That split-second flicker of realization, like when you confidently step off a curb only to realize the ground isn't where you left it. A micro-expression that screamed, wait. I wasn't prepared for an actual question.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the payroll tax.
For a man who could talk his way around facts like an Olympic gymnast dodging a drug test, this was uncharted territory. The usual strategy, yell fake news, blame Obama, or pivot to an anecdote about a completely imaginary person named Jim, was nowhere to be found. Even the classic, sir, many people are saying, opener failed to boot up. The reporter sat motionless, resisting the urge to check their pulses. Was this real? Had the laws of physics changed? Was this the Twilight Zone? Had the simulation glitched? Somewhere in the distance, a bald eagle shed a single tear. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably just 5 seconds, which in silence time is basically 5 years, he blinked, twitched, and did what any malfunctioning program does. Force quit. A quick shuffle backward, a muttered deflection, and an escape that would make even the most dramatic reality TV contestant proud.
Yes, ma'am.
What's your future plan for Afghan people, especially Afghan?
I have a little hard time understanding you. Actually, it's a beautiful voice and a beautiful accent. The only problem is I can't understand a word you're saying. But I just say this, good luck. Live in peace.
The silence, however, had already done its job. It wasn't just an awkward pause. It was the moment the mask slipped. The moment when words, the very tool that had built an empire of spin, abandoned their most loyal servant. And in that brief, glorious instance, the loudest voice in the room had finally been drowned out by the sheer, unrelenting power of a question he never saw coming. The man who once boasted about having the best words suddenly found himself in a drought. No adjectives, no superlatives, not even a good old-fashioned tremendous to bail him out. Just a stunned expression followed by an almost cartoonish blink, as if his brain had momentarily disconnected from the Wi-Fi. He sputtered, stalling for time like a kid caught sneaking cookies before dinner. It wasn't just a delay tactic, it was a reflex, the verbal equivalent of pressing Control Z on reality. Maybe if he asked the question back, it would dissolve into thin air, just like the many scandals he wished would.
Let me ask, if I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am.
Mr. President, that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation? Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working.
But the reporter wasn't playing along. No mercy, no bailout, no distraction to grab onto, just cold, hard clarification. And that's when it happened. He paused. A real, undeniable, oh no pause. the kind that only occurs when someone is faced with a question they can't spin, dodge, or drown in word salad. The man who could talk for hours about imaginary phone calls from the Boy Scouts, the dangers of low-flush toilets, and how nobody knew healthcare was so complicated, suddenly had nothing. The crowd held its breath. Would he deny? Would he blame China? Would he say he was being treated unfairly and storm out? Nope. None of the above. Instead, in a move as smooth as a toddler attempting a magic trick, he simply pivoted. No answer, no defense, just a clumsy redirect to another reporter, as if the last 10 seconds had never happened. It was the ultimate non-response response, a strategy so simple, yet so bafflingly effective. If I pretend the question doesn't exist, maybe reality will follow suit. It was the same logic a toddler uses when covering their eyes. If I can't see you, you can't see me.
Who are committing anti-Semitic acts or threatening to...
You see, he said he was going to ask a very simple, easy question. And it's not. It's not. Not a simple question, not a fair question. Okay, sit down.
Reporters exchanged looks. Some smirked, some scribbled furiously, knowing they had just witnessed a moment that would be replayed for years. And some just sat back, amazed, as they realized they had just seen the rarest phenomenon in modern politics. Donald Trump running out of words. The internet erupted like a 4th of July fireworks show sponsored by caffeine and pure schadenfreude. Within seconds, the clip spread across social media faster than Trump's infamous Sharpie-edited weather maps. People couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. An actual real-life glitch in the system. It was as if someone had pulled the batteries out of a remote-controlled robot mid-sentence. Memes rolled in at warp speed. Some compared the moment to a buffering YouTube video, others to a student realizing they'd been called on in class without having done the reading. The dramatic reenactments came next. One even featured a courtroom-style drama where imaginary jurors gasped and a fictional judge banged the gavel while declaring, "We have a confession by omission."
I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there. And I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news, and I don't mind that so much.
Late-night hosts sharpened their comedic knives, slicing into the moment like a turkey on Thanksgiving. The reaction was unanimous. Trump, the king of deflection, had finally met a question so direct it short-circuited his built-in outrage generator. It was a question so pointed, so simple, yet so impossible to spin into one of his usual greatest hits. Fake news, witch hunt, rigged, that all he could do was sit there, briefly frozen in the existential crisis of a man who suddenly realized that words alone wouldn't get him out of this one. But Trump's most loyal followers weren't going to let one awkward silence be the hill he tumbled down. The excuses began flying in faster than a press secretary scrambling to explain why the stock market dipping was actually a good thing. Some insisted it was a trick question, as if being asked whether you regret lying is some sort of mind-bending philosophical riddle that only Socrates himself could answer. Others declared that ignoring it was a power move, that true leadership means never dignifying a question with a response, especially if the answer might be, well, inconvenient.
Now, they'll take this news conference. I'm actually having a very good time, okay? But they'll take this news conference. Don't forget, that's the way I won. Remember, I used to give you a news conference every time I made a speech, which was like every day. Okay? No, that's how I won. I won with news conference and probably speeches. I certainly didn't win by people listening to you people, that's for sure. But I'm having a good time. Tomorrow they will say, Donald Trump rants and raves at the press. I'm not ranting and raving. I'm just telling you, you're dishonest people. But I'm not ranting and raving. I love this. I'm having a good time doing it. But tomorrow the headlines are going to be Donald Trump rants and raves. I'm not ranting and raving.
About the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
Yeah.
Meanwhile, journalists and political commentators launched into deep analyses, dissecting every possible reason why the moment unfolded the way it did. Was it shock? an unwillingness to engage, a temporary Wi-Fi outage in his thought process. Theories ranged from political strategy to pure, unfiltered panic. But the simplest, funniest possibility? He just hadn't expected someone to actually ask. Somewhere in the White House, aides were probably scrambling to craft a narrative, spinning the silence into some sort of genius-level tactical maneuver. Maybe they'd claim he was letting the question breathe like a fine wine. Maybe they'd insist he was testing the American people, waiting to see if they knew the answer. Or maybe, just maybe, they'd go for the classic approach, pretend it never happened, and hope the next outrage cycle swallowed it whole. But the internet never forgets. The clip was already out in the wild, and once a moment reaches meme status, it's immortal. The pause, the non-answer, the sheer weight of the silence. It was louder than any response he could have given.
Overall, South Korea has done 5 times more tests than the U.S. per capita. Why is that?
I don't think that's true.
That is true.
Do you want to respond to that? If you have the numbers.
South Korea's testing was 11 per 100,000, and we're at 17 per 100,000.
Right.
So,
are you going to apologize, Yahoo? That's why you're Yahoo. Nobody knows who that you are.
For years, Trump treated press briefings like an improv show where the only rule was deny everything and insult everyone. Reporters would come armed with facts, and he'd counter with nicknames, exaggerated hand gestures, and a well-timed fake news. It was like watching a magician whose trick was making the truth disappear. But this time? Oh, this time was different. This time, the press threw a rhetorical banana peel, and the self-proclaimed stable genius slipped. When confronted with a question so direct it could have been fired from a cannon, Trump did something unthinkable. He glitched. His usual defenses, deflection, distraction, and throwing the nearest person under the bus failed him. Instead, there was an awkward pause so long it could have been measured in dog years. For the first time in his political career, he had nothing. No comeback, no insult, no conspiracy theory about windmills. Just silence. The man who could ramble for hours about dishwashers and light bulbs suddenly forgot how words worked.
And I get myself in trouble because I say that tariff is my favorite word, and the fake news went crazy. What about God? What about wife and family? What about love? I said, okay, tariff is now my 4th favorite word. I got myself into a lot of trouble with that. You can't believe it. I said, tariff is my favorite word in the dictionary, and I got killed by the fake news. So I say now, it doesn't sound good. Tariff, it's my 4th favorite word. I go, tariff is my 4th favorite word. It sounds so terrible, but this way I'm free. I write free.
Meanwhile, the internet exploded faster than a microwave burrito left in too long. Memes flooded timelines. Comedians sharpened their jokes. Even his most loyal defenders struggled to spin this one. He was just thinking, they insisted. Sure. And Bigfoot moonlights as an Uber driver. The moment didn't just expose his usual deflections, it was a reminder that even the loudest person in the room can be left speechless when faced with a truth too big to dodge. It was like watching a chatty GPS suddenly lose signal. 1 second, he's confidently navigating nonsense, and the next, he's frozen, recalculating. The world watched in collective amusement as the man who never met a microphone he didn't like got verbally unplugged. For once, silence spoke louder than Trump.